Good. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming and joining in this morning on the Saturday morning. So beautiful outside, so many things you could be doing, but you thought enough of your own self to come in and learn just a little bit more with us this morning. So we'll go ahead and we'll open with the word of prayer. Who's there? I can't see the people, so.
Let's see here. We have Mark Bernard, Josiah Shola, the Muffs, Alexander Harris, Anita, I don't know her last name, Kiara, and Miss Pat.
Oh, okay, very good.
Yep.
Dr. Bernard, would you like to lead us in the word of prayer this morning?
Hey, but before he does, Miss Beverly, can I recommend you don't hold your phone, just put it somewhere.
Okay.
Because that way you won't be shaking as much there. There we go. Awesome.
All right.
Go ahead, Mark.
Dear Lord, thank you for this time for us to gather together and to learn biblical principles and how we are to manage our money, Lord God. We do know that money is, fortunately and unfortunately, a tough reality and a difficult reality that we have to deal with our lives, Lord. We know there are many ways to mishandle it. There are many ways to handle it properly too as well. We pray, Lord God, that you will please help us to take away the truth from today's lesson, and please help us to reflect upon what we learned today and to apply what we need to apply so that we can be good stewards with what you have given us. All this we pray to your glory and honor, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Hey,
Amen.
before we get started, I do want to point out something as the person controlling the Zoom session. If for some reason there is some background coming from your microphone, I will mute you. I'm not being mean when I'm doing that. You have the ability to unmute yourself. So if you see that you've been muted, that was me. And I'm doing it because I want to make sure that we all get something out of the session. Sometimes we forget that when someone else comes into the room, we should mute ourselves. But you do have the ability to unmute yourself whenever you're ready. Because we want you to ask questions.
All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we have just a short poll, just to kind of test our knowledge. Your information will not be displayed, so it's just a 6-question poll that we'll start with.
Let me explain that just to make sure, yes, because the information will be displayed, but who it comes from, we don't know. So it's a blind poll, but this is just to test your knowledge, and it's going to kick off. 1 second here. Right now. I'm assuming you all can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
Awesome.
Deacon Moore?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm still connected.
We're still here. 7 of the 11 folks have responded. I'll give it about 30 more seconds, and then we will go with whoever we have here. So if you're getting close to doing it, go ahead and knock it out. 10 seconds. And we're done.
Okay, well, that shouldn't have been too bad. So we'll go ahead and review our poll questions. Question number 1, when paying taxes in the United States, the more money you make, the answer is B, the more taxes you're paying. So Deacon Moore, how did we do on percentage on that one?
We did 88% on that. One person said it doesn't make a difference because everyone pays the same amount. I want to, on that one, I want to add a different answer also. The more money you make may not impact your taxes as much as you think it does. It does have an impact, but there are things you can do to actually reduce your tax burden, which is why you hear some people actually make more money and pay less taxes. That's an offline conversation I would love to have with people one-on-one, but there are ways to make money and reduce taxes. And a lot of folks don't know that, and I would love to talk to you about that.
Very good, good point. Thank you. Number 2, the average Social Security payment a person receives today per month. And what do we get on that one?
Looks like we got, everyone said D, less than $1,000.
That is correct. And it's amazing. Many people, many of our seniors are having to live on that amount. So just keep that in mind. Number 3, people who do not understand the difference between blank and blank usually struggle with financial problems.
Everyone got that, chose B, which is needs and wants.
Very good. Got a great class here this morning. Number 4, one major problem with using credit cards is that people.
Everyone said C, buy things they can't afford.
Beautiful. I think we can end this class right now. We got a good class going on. If you use a credit card, you should.
Okay, 75% said pay the full balance of the credit card every month. 25% say pay the minimum payment each month.
Okay, the best answer in this case will be A, pay the full balance at the end of every month. And the reason you want to do that is because you save without paying the interest that gets calculated. And the rate of interest on a credit card can be as much as seen up to 25, 29%, especially if you've ever made a late payment. So you always want to pay it off every month if you're able to do that. And the final one, what are the 2 main reasons to save money?
We had 38% said for rainy days and major purchases, 13% said to pay off your credit cards and for major purchases, and half the folks said so you can invest it and donate it.
Very good. Okay, and the answer here, let me go back to my screen here. Give me just a second. B, for rainy days and major purchases. So you can save for all of those reasons, which are good reasons to save, but you also want to make sure that you do have that rainy day fund or emergency funds and able to make major purchases so that you don't have to finance those. Thank you all so much for sharing in that poll. You did a great job.
And for those of you who said D, don't feel bad because I would have chosen D also because I want to invest it and donate.
Right. So if I'm not looking at the one screen, I'm having to look at my laptop with the my PowerPoint. I kind of lost connection there. All right, so we'll go ahead with the PowerPoint presentation. Did anybody have any questions on any of those before we move on? Okay.
You know, I do have one thing I want to add. I'm sorry, someone had a question. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Okay. One thing that I've always done is that I treat credit cards like they are cash. You know, in my mindset, credit cards are just a convenient way to use cash. And that's what I'm constantly telling myself as I use them. So if I'm doing that, I'm paying off every month and I'm not buying things I don't need because they are really cash.
Yeah. I have a question. Are we going to cover credit cards in this?
We'll cover it some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have some questions and concerns, but I'll save it till that point.
Okay. Back a little bit. All right. So you're in the right place at the right time. Next slide. So this is just a disclaimer, and basically what that just says is that the bulk of the information comes from the Consumer Protection Bureau, which is out of the federal government in Washington. They provide financial literacy information so that we can present it to the community. They really want people to be informed, and the earlier we inform, the better decisions we can make. So that's where the bulk of the material comes from. And then on the bottom of some of the slides, you would maybe see a link or web URL at the bottom, and that is where I got that information. So I always want to make sure that you're aware that this is not my information, and they don't hold to whatever I say this morning. They just want to know they provide the information. Next slide. So as I was preparing and wanted to make sure that we got as much as we could from the session this morning, I thought of many different topics. I was kind of led to these that we have here today. They're not all inclusive, and we won't talk about in details on every one of those, but we are available to discuss them with you at a later time. We've already done some sessions earlier that will be part of some of the in-depth to some of these as well. So if you need any more information, let us know. We'll either point you back to the earlier session, or we'll meet with you one-on-one. So some of the things that we'll talk about, these strategies for economic empowerment. Oftentimes you hear people who are concerned and maybe have made some decisions, maybe just because they didn't have the information on the literacy or the education to make a good informed decision. And sometimes when that happens, it's just harder to get back on the right track, but it's not impossible. But so we want to just make sure that we're providing tools so that you can have an upfront before things get too far gone in our lives or in your lives, so that you can make some decisions that would be good for your financial success. So one of the things that I wanted to point out, even as I work with the Millennium Group on my job, in my past jobs, people of different generations may have different thoughts for different reasons. And so we'll talk a little bit about those, and not that one is any better than the other, but there's just been some proven history because the baby boomers information data as to how we did things is available on research. But the millenniums, the information is becoming more prevalent, but they're out now measuring the success rates, the behaviors and the value systems that they bring to their financial literacy. So we'll talk a little bit about the facts of what the millennials believe. We'll talk about applying the biblical scriptures to your finances, and that's a must. We'll talk about understanding financial literacy. What is it and why is it important to us? We'll talk about understanding your spending habits. There's some myths that so many of us believe that are not true about money and finances. We'll also talk about some things that we need to avoid. There's some financial pitfalls or some things that we may do that's not in our best financial interest. We'll talk about practicing self-control, investing time for your finances, very important, because you have to spend time, no matter how much, how little, how much you make, that doesn't matter. But what does matter is that you're taking the time to look at it on a regular basis, okay? So we'll talk about calculating and knowing your net worth and why that's important. We're talking about maintaining a spending plan. So a spending plan for your age group, 18 to 39, some research says, and some says 24 to 39. But just that spending plan is a little bit easier to grasp, and it's a little bit easier to apply in many situations. In our generations with the baby boomers, we talked about budget. It was all about the budget. Next, we'll talk about creating and maintaining emergency funds, saving for your financial goals, understanding financial obligations and your debts, understanding the importance of good credit, financial benefits of owning a home versus renting, and understanding the benefits of life insurance, and the importance of saving now for retirement. So as you can see, we have a variety of topics because I wasn't sure how many times we would get to meet with this group. So we just kind of wanted to do a good overview in all of these areas, and if we're invited to come back, we'd love to do more, or if needed, we'll direct you to some sessions we've had previously. Next slide.
Oh, I guess that's me. Believe it or not, I actually didn't see that slide this time around.
Oh,
So
okay.
normally I have a slide prepared, but I always have something ready to say. So I'd love to give you a nice color picture to put there, but I just didn't have one. So here we go. If I were to give you a biblical principle that is pertinent for young adults today, I would probably go to Proverbs 29. And I apologize, I would have had the exact verse, but as you know, I'm on the spot here. It says, well, there is no vision and people perish. And one of the biggest issues that I think we have with young adults is that people are so busy focused on the right now that they don't actually look ahead to see what's going on. You know, I hear people say things like, I'm going to work until I die, or they say, well, I'm going to make $1 million next year, all those things there. And they really aren't just looking ahead about what's going on. A prudent man or woman foresees what's going on. You have to have a vision. You have to know what's going on, where you are now, where you plan to go in the future, and you have to make plans accordingly. And you know, there's a million little sayings that I can think of that goes along with that, but too many of us are putting off today what we should be doing because we think tomorrow we can catch up. And you know, you have to have the vision to understand that if you truly aren't focused on tomorrow right now, and I don't mean from a biblical standpoint, we lean on the Lord. He gives us resources, and we really should be using those, putting things away for our family and for ourselves, because you can't work forever. And these systems that are set up in place for us that we think support us in our retirement years are only meant to supplement. So you need to have that vision and understand that at some point you're going to want to stop working. And when you do, what's in place to keep you going? So again, I think it's just looked at as Proverbs 29:18, where there is no vision, the people perish. So have a vision. Amen.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, next slide. So now we're now, excuse me, look at some of the facts about the millennial group. This is the generation that, you know, it's the now time, and this is the largest population that is currently recorded. So you all are in that group are really the group that's going to be leading our future and the ones that are really out making an impact. So many in this group, and many of these things will apply to you and some will not, you know, because people are at different places with their lives and have made different choices. So everything here may not apply to you because this is just a general information about the general population. So many regret pursuing a college education because of the high cost, and many of them have high student loan debts, many as high as over $30,000 in student loans. So that number is really big, but what I would say about you who are still in school and you who are wanting to pursue school is that always do as, as much research as you can to see what free money is available, what scholarships are available, and also do your due diligence and making sure whatever field that you pursue, that it will be a field that hopefully, preferably, will be jobs in that area when you graduate. Okay, so it's a lot to consider. So think about it, pray about it, but definitely spend some due diligence and really researching that field and researching for free money. And I did that with my daughter. She had all kinds of scholarships from Pepsi-Cola, Community Action, you know, Target. There are so many agencies that are wanting to give money to young people, but you just have to research. I went to the library and got a big bound book with scholarships, and boy, did that help. So the next one, just so that we wouldn't have all the student loan debt when she graduated. So many of them don't have money for savings, which causes further delays in starting a business. So many people who are graduating college now who don't get the job, you know, it's harder for them to get started. They can't start their life, can't start a business, can't start a family, can't buy a home or build wealth because of that student loan debt. for one, and also about the economy, because many of them graduated when unemployment was higher and jobs were more scarce and salaries were lower. So many reported, to do desperate measures. They had to take jobs that paid low salaries in hope to get what's called the student loan forgiveness. And so I guess that they went on the mind and got the student loans not going anywhere. You don't have a job, so let me just take a job, and maybe that would be twofold. I would get rid of the debt in 10 years, and hopefully I would, be able to suffice on that income. So many in the age group use credit cards to pay for the basic daily necessities such as food and utilities. So you want to refrain from doing that as much as you can. So if you're doing a spending plan and if you're budgeting your money, hopefully you will not have to use credit cards for your food and utilities. It says over 25% have late payments or are dealing with bill collectors, and well over half are still receiving some form of financial aid from their parents. So that just tells you it's just a little bit harder for this group to get started, okay? So that don't mean for everybody. So this is just a general population as they're referring to. And here's a couple of things I thought was really neat. They really want to purchase, the purchases they make, this group, to make them feel good. So 60% of the millennials tend to gravitate towards purchases that are expressive of their personalities. And also the research says they place value on their experiences. Half of the group prefer to spend money on experiences than material things, and they're willing to pay extra for it. So when I thought about that, I thought about, yes, it's baby boomers. We're wanting to herd up, let's buy a house, let's buy a car, let's get furnishings. But they're saying this group, that's not what's important to them. Next slide, in general. Okay, so what is financial literacy and why is it important? It's the ability to make informed decisions in managing your personal finances in order to make smart decisions about what to do with your money. So just real simple. It's just making those sound decisions, understand some principles so that you know what to do with your money. And so by becoming more financial literate or gaining financial education like you're doing today, even at your young age, Josiah, is a good time to hear this. All of this may not make sense, but you would have heard it and you may reflect back to it at a later date in your life. So just getting that information is powerful. Next slide. Okay, I know we talked a little bit earlier in our poll question about needs versus wants. So as you can see, needs are something that you must have in order to live. So there's some things that you have to take care of first. So those will be our needs. And even no matter what stage of life you're in, whether you, what age group, these are all universal. Our needs are our needs. And then our wants are things that we'd like to have that may give us additional comfort. So these needs represents the necessities while our wants indicate our desires. So naturally our rent, our mortgage, utilities, our food, transportation, clothing, healthcare, childcare, taxes, to name a few. I'm sure there's others that could be added there, but those are the bulk of the ones that we really want to make sure that we have in place. And then as money is available, then we can focus on our entertainment, our satellite, our streaming. Internet service, it can go both ways. It's hard to have life without it anymore. Magazines, eating out, hobbies, and sports. So those are things that we take care of once we've satisfied our needs, the things that we have to do every month. Next slide.
I would like to add under the need column, something that says saving/investing. I consider that a need. And the reason why is because if you aren't putting something away to actually grow, then, and I'll use a strong word here, then you are a slave to the process. And I would love to talk more about that, but let's keep going for now. But if you aren't putting something away, you need to do that. And I'd love to tell you why, but we'll wait for a little slide on that.
Okay, very good. All right, so you need to kind of learn how to practice self-control. And that's just something that we grow up into. And oftentimes, even as young children, we always want to have things. And and we want that immediate gratification. So the sooner that you learn, the easier it would be to apply that principle, because that's just saying, okay, I know I want these tennis shoes. I know I want to go ahead and eat out tonight, but I don't have the money. So I just put it on my credit card. And so what that means over time, in that third little bullet there, if and if you don't pay it all in full at the end of that month, you could be paying for those items 5 years or more. So if you don't have the money to eat out that time or get the shoes, then you're putting yourself in a disservice if you go ahead with that item and put it on your credit card, which means that you didn't practice good self-control, saying, okay, I need to wait until I have that money in hand to do so. Next slide. And if anybody have any questions or any comments or anything as we're going through, please feel free to raise your hand, do it in the chat box so that we make sure that we're meeting your needs this morning. All right, so don't believe the myths. So there's a lot of myths that's been given to people throughout the years, and some of these you may have heard of and maybe not. But one of the big myths is that living on a budget or spending plan doesn't work, and that's a myth. And a myth meaning that's something that's not true. So living on a budget is something that does work, and on the spending plan. So people have said, I tried it already. So that in their mind, it doesn't work, but in reality, it can work. Car payments are necessary. Car payments are not necessary. You can save money. You can buy a car that you can afford so that you don't have to have car payments. It depends on your planning and your timing and things like that. So they're not necessary. You need a credit card for emergencies. I've been told that, but that's not necessarily true, because if I have my money in my savings account or my checking account, then I can pay for my emergencies. I don't earn enough money to save. Yet another myth. With proper budgeting and planning, you can probably squeeze out some money to save. Never invest in the stock market. Again, another myth, and I know Madika Moore can speak really great on that as well. I can't afford to invest. Another myth. And I don't make enough money to save or pay off my debt. So all these things are things that are oftentimes told to people, and they're not necessarily the case. It's just with proper planning and spending the time necessary to reach those goals, it makes it possible. Next slide. Okay, so as we get into adulthood and have to start making decisions, we really want to make sure that we avoid certain financial pitfalls, okay? And these pitfalls, basically what they do, they get us in a situation where it's harder to move forward financially. Okay, so just think of these as things that I don't want to do, and making sure that, I at least understand if I do them, what the consequences may be. So spending more than you make is something that you don't want to do. Not balancing your checkbook, not writing down your ATM and debit card transactions, that's a big one. And relying on overdraft protection. I had a client say, oh, Miss Beverly, I got the overdraft protection. They're just going to charge me like $35 if I go over my balance. But when she did that 3 times, now she's over, more than $100. I mean, that's a lot of money to pay the bank fees. It does nothing other than keep your creditors from knowing that you didn't have the money. But in reality, that's good money that you could have saved if you had planned and managed your account.
There's a funny saying we have in my house and the boys. If you ever see them around, you ought to try this out on them. When they were younger, we'd be talking about something. We'd be in a store, and they say something like, "Hey, Dad, can I have this?" I'm like, "Nah, you don't need that." And they'll say, "Hey, but it's only $10." And I'd say, "No, it's $10." And the point there is that it's how you look at things. You may say with that ATM overdraft, well, it's only $30, but that stuff adds up. So when you say it's only $30, I'm gonna say, no, it's $30. Okay, it actually adds up for you and can hurt you.
It can. Thank you. All right, so also purchasing cars from the buy here, pay here lots. Those are kind of strategically located in certain communities. And the hope is that we'll come and buy that car from that lot, and we're going to pay a whole lot more money, for that vehicle because of the interest rate. Everybody gets to drive, everybody drives kind of thing. Well, that's just saying that if your credit's not ready, we're still gonna give you a car. But in the reality, you're gonna suffer in a lot of other ways. Your payments are gonna be higher. You know, it's gonna probably not be as good a car as you could have gotten if you bought a car from just a traditional lot. So keep that in mind to maybe try to venture away from buy here, pay here when you need to purchase a vehicle. Purchase and rent to own. That's even like if you went to one of the rental centers to get a washer and dryer. Over time, you will have paid probably for those items probably 10 times by the time you finish with that last payment. So instead of doing that, you want to save your money, you know, as part of that plan we talked about earlier, having money for those major purchases so that you don't have to revert from overpaying. You know, so you're paying it off, let's say for $600 for the set, or let's say $800, wash and dryer. So by the time you have finished paying that from a rent to own, you may have paid as much as $3,000. There's a big difference. Check into cash, payday advance loan. You definitely want to stay away from those. Basically, that is not your friend. You will pay up to 400% interest, and I'll explain a little bit what that is. So say if I'm short on cash. So I have a job, I have a check, I take my check into the advance loan company, and I say I need $200. I need $200 more on my rent. Okay, Beverly, here's your $200. Give us a post-dated check. I give them the check, and I go away, I pay my rent or whatever I'm gonna do with it. I come back, they said, we need the money back in 2 weeks. Well, because I was still live on such a tight budget, oh yeah, I'm gonna come back and see you, but now I got to give you another check simply because I don't have the money now to really pay it off. So the fees they charged me the first time was $60, and now they're gonna charge me another $60 to do my next advance. So by the time I have to do that 2 or 3, 4 times, I've wasted a lot of money. I've wasted a lot of money. Had I not saved my tax returns or planned a little bit better, then I would not be in that situation. So try to stay away from the payday advances. Not saving money.
Can we pause for a second
Sure.
there? A former pastor of mine used to always say that he learned to identify his profound statements because sometimes folks didn't know they were profound statements. Miss Beverly just explained that many of these places, these buy here, pay here places, these rent to own places, these check in the cash payment are strategically placed in certain neighborhoods. I know you heard that, but let me further explain that. They are strategically placed to take care of people who are bad with finances. They, in the poor neighborhoods, they take advantage of those things. So when you actually are going into those places, and I'm not saying go or don't go, but I am saying if you find yourself in one of those places, you ought to be saying to yourself, I'm being taken advantage of. And you got to understand because they will charge you additional interest payments and things like that. And by the way, that's legal, okay? And what I want you to be thinking is you're putting yourself in a bad situation intentionally. Okay, don't go to places that are going to charge you extra. As you said in the previous slide, use a little self-control, save your money, because if you can't separate the mindset of I want it now versus I need it now, you're going to find yourself in a bad spot there. But those folks are out there to take advantage of you. Don't let them do that.
Thank you. Very good point. All right, so not saving money is another pitfall. Not paying your bills on time. Breaking your cell phone contracts without paying off your balance with your previous phone. That's a big one I did see a lot on people's credit reports. Oh, I didn't know I had to do that. Well, yeah, you still owed $300 to T-Mobile before you went to Sprint, and T-Mobile still wants their money. So be aware that will show up on your credit report if you decide to change carriers and owe the previous one a balance. Co-signing on loans, and this is a big no-no. If one of your friends say, oh, I know you got good credit, you just started out, can you co-sign for me? That's a big no-no. Never, ever do that. I would just advise definitely against that. It breaks relationships. It's just not something that ends well, you know, because that person that you're co-signing for them for a certain reason. why did they get themselves in big trouble? Now, you're going to be at risk, because as soon as you sign on that note or on that loan for them, you're the owner as well of that debt. So try to be careful and be smart with that. Ignoring debt collectors' letters and phone
And
calls.
I'm sorry, Miss Beverly, you make such great points. We have to hit that one.
Okay.
I actually wish the term co-signing didn't exist. I wish it was just signing for a loan.
Mhm.
Understand, when you co-sign for someone, you are not 50% responsible. You are 100% responsible. So if somebody, and as she said, the person who actually is asking you to co-sign, they already have bad credit. Credit card companies are not dumb. They always go for the deep pockets. When people sue, they sue the deep pockets. So if you have a friend who had bad credit and you have good credit, when it comes time to sue for that money, guess what? You are the deep pocket. They will get not 50%, as co-signing may imply, they will get 100% from you. Please understand that. And as she said, that's why you should not do that.
Thank you. All right. Ignoring your debt collectors' letters and phone calls. If you get behind on a debt, you will get a letter at some point or a phone call, and sometimes they continue to call you until they get you. But here's a key thing on this one. Do not ignore the letters or the phone calls. You have to first make sure you're talking to somebody that's legitimate, because there's so many scammers out there and so many people that will call you that you don't owe and may pretend and may try to get information about your credit card or about your accounts over the phone. So never give out any of your information, but do, have a discussion with them and have them send you something in the mail if indeed you owe a debt, and then you can respond back to them, but just don't ignore that. Not reviewing your credit reports yearly for mistakes. You also have to monitor your credit scores, and your ID theft is very, very heavy right now with COVID. People are using people's credit. And one of the things that the annual credit reporting system is doing right now during COVID, you're able to get a free credit report every week until the end of April, because they know how things are going right now. So they want you to go out and monitor your credit report so that you can see if there's any changes or any new accounts that are open, anything that doesn't look like it belongs to you, so that you're aware. Because you don't want to wait until a year from now when you want to buy a home, and then you go and find 4 or 5 different accounts that do not belong to you. So make sure that you are reviewing your credit report, and you can get those free. And I will send out, I can go ahead and give you, if you got paper, I go ahead and give you the link to get that. So for those of you, and Dicamo, I don't know if you can put that on the screen anywhere for us.
I can. What I can do is, if you give it, I can put it in the chat.
Okay. All right. All right. So it's www.
Hold 1 second. Hang on.
Okay.
Hold 1 second. Let me set it up here, everyone. www.
Annual, ANNUAL, credit, CREDIT, report, REPORT.com. So you can go there and get a free credit report from one of the 3 bureaus every week during this time. This is no cost. The only thing it doesn't have is a credit score per se, but it will have all your pertinent information, all your pertinent accounts. It will let you know if you've opened a new account, whether you had an inquiry, meaning that you had somebody check your credit for some reason, and if that wasn't you, so that you can be aware of what's going on with your credit. So definitely take advantage of that. And also make sure that, you take your credit very personal, even after the COVID, and monitor that. And you can get, on a normal time frame, you can get 3 free reports per year from one of the bureaus. That same website, after COVID, would still give you 3 free credit reports per year, 1 per, whether it's Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax. Those are free to you, but just do not include a credit score. All right, so carrying a balance on an interest-bearing credit card. So you want to avoid that because you're paying money every month that you could be saving because you bought the shoes and bought the dinner out. Now you're paying that interest every month. You know, that adds up over time. Next slide. Okay, so this one really talks a little bit about the millennial spending habits and talking about the convenience. You know, they value the time and they're willing to pay more for the conveniences of things to make their lives a little bit easier, including online shopping. So they like convenience. As far as the debt payments and how they pay the debt, according to research, they owe over $1.1 trillion of the country's $3.6 trillion in consumer debt. So what that means, all the debt that's in our country right now, $1.1 trillion of that belongs to the millennial group of that 3.6. And much of that is due to the student loan debts. So student loan debts, it's so easy to get those. And many times people have gotten those, quit school, enrolled again, got more. You know, there was running a racket for a while, just going to school, get the money, withdraw from school. That is not what that's designed for. If you have to get a student loan, make sure that you've done all your due diligence not to get one if you don't have to, and to get less if you do have to get one. So eating out, we talked a little bit about that. So with the food delivery services, people wanting to just order in for the food, they call and get it delivered to them. So you're spending about 47% of their budget on eating out, instead of taking time to maybe spend some time now while you're in more, picking up a recipe or two, calling Sister Lisa Moore, and she will always be happy to teach anyone how to cook. You know, so if you need some help in that area, don't hesitate to call her. I know she'd be happy to hear from you, but try to make sure that you tighten up that budget on your food, because that's quite a bit of money. Now, this is still a general population. This may or may not apply to you specifically. All right, and when it comes to their experiences in the
Sister Beverly, can I share something on that one? I keep little signs in my house because they're funny to me, and it just makes me think of things, and I want to share one with you that talks about eating out. I'm assuming you guys can see that. I'll read it for those who are on the phone. The average American spends $15 a day eating out. That's $450 a month. If you include drinks, that's about $600 to $750 a month. In 2 months, you can buy a ticket for anywhere in the world. You actually can afford to travel. You're just too lazy to cook.
Well, isn't that nifty? I like that. Yeah, that is nifty, and that is so true. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so that just kind of talks about why, you know, things are maybe like they are, because we're not, I mean, this is based on value system and mindset kind of thing. And oftentimes when an 18-year-old leaves home, they've not heard a lot about money. They've not heard a lot about credit, budgets and cars and what to do and checking accounts and how not to go over your balances. So, so this morning, we just kind of want to bring just some general information just to make you aware of all these things. Okay, next slide. So this one just quickly talks about the money behavior and that mindset. And our mindset will control what we do with our money and how we will behave. And much of that is based on our value system. So down at the bottom, it says, learn what you can do to change your behavior. Say, if you're not doing what you should be doing, today is a day to start over. Yeah. So you can start over and say, okay, I haven't done it the way it should be done. Let me take some of these principles and just start over. And that's okay. And to change that behavior so that your financial future will be in a better situation. Next slide. Okay, so you want to really invest some scheduled time for your finances. And why I call this scheduled times? With my clients, I always say time management. I mean, you have to manage your time. There's so many things that get in the way of your time, and we still have a lot of time, even though we're home, and we can do some things better. So maybe now would be a good time to start scheduling that time for finances and putting together a spending plan so that you will not have to revert to some of the things we've already talked about. So our household finances must be shared between all appropriate family members, most importantly between husband and wives. So you need to make sure if you're married that husband and wife both are part of that scheduled time. You can spend as little as 30 minutes a week. What bills are due? What do we have? What needs to be paid? So that everybody in the household that needs to know is aware of what's going on, because you don't want something to happen to one of the two and the rent hadn't been paid and the other didn't know about it. The second one is recommended that newly married young couples maintain a joint bank account for a minimum of the first 4 to 5 years of marriage. And this one's really important because it really helps you maximize your budget and control your budget.
I don't know what you was doing.
Teresa, can you mute?
Flushing and flushing.
Teresa, can you mute?
I got it. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, so just making sure that you're maximizing your budget and your money. So, and when we come together as one, we're one, but a lot of times that's my money, that's my money. And that makes it really hard on relationships because money is one of those things that leads to a lot of issues in marriages and families. So understanding, hey, here's our pot of money, and until you get to a position where you can have various pools, or you get $100 a month for your fun stuff, I get $100 for mine, but the general money will be in our joint account to pay our joint bills, okay? Spend at least an hour per week discussing and paying your bills, and always schedule time to review your finances and create a spending plan monthly. You got to do that. That's just 12 times a year. Not a lot of time, but boy, will it make a big impact on your finances. This will allow you to identify also any upcoming expenses that you may not pay but periodically, like your car insurance. So everything can be going along smooth for the first 2 months. And here's month number 3. Here comes the car insurance that you forgot to include in your mindset and thinking of what you had to do. So it's good to have a written plan, and that way you can always refer back to it and making sure that you're paying everything in a timely manner. Next slide.
Let's stay here for 1 second. Again,
Sure.
Sister Beverly does such a great job here, and all I'm doing is putting an exclamation point here. So many people, when they get married, they're thinking, well, that's his money, that's her money, and this and that. Understand that in the eyes of God and in the eyes of the law, you all are one people. So if you all are not on the same page, it's going to be a problem. So this joint bank account thing is a very good idea. You as you talk to your future spouse about everything, make sure finances is one of those things, because if one of you is on board and one of you is not, you're gonna have a problem. Understand that in the eyes of God, you are one. Trying to maintain separate accounts over years, that's not going to work. So make sure. I actually have been married to Miss Lisa, actually 33 years today. Didn't have a chance to do the marital counseling under Pastor Sholar, but I'm sure there's some talk about family finances in that talk. So please understand that's real. And many people actually end up in trouble because they think they can operate separately. You cannot. Praise the Lord.
Okay, so we're gonna pause right here. I'm gonna try to log on with my laptop. I'm on my phone and I keep looking between the 2 items. So before we do this slide, does anyone have any questions while I try to reconnect? Any questions that we may can answer on anything that we've covered so far? And we're doing pretty good on time, so. Anybody have any questions? You can put it in the chat box or you can just let us know.
Well, hey, since no one has a question here, let me ask you all a question. Let me turn this off so we can see each other real quick here. I got a crazy question, and bear with me here. What's a slave? Feel free to unmute. What is the definition of a slave? Come on, somebody.
Someone who serves something?
Okay, so he spends his or her life in service of someone else. I like that. Anybody else want to add to that?
Somebody who owes somebody else money.
Okay, I like that one even better. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to it? And by the way, this isn't some long planned out discussion here, so I'll give a quick definition of myself. If you actually owe all of your health and strength and resources to somebody else, you're a slave. So if you're living from paycheck to paycheck, and hang on, Teresa wants to be unmuted here. Let me ask you. If you're spending your paycheck just surviving, which means you are giving everything you have to someone else just to survive, you're a slave. And I think that's worth considering there, because so many people live check to check. And there's a book that I love to read, and I'm going to put it up here. You'll see it. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of the first laws is a tenth of what you earn is yours to keep. And I love that statement, because it says you should be putting something away every month. Teresa, if you have a comment, please add there. I see your hand. Teresa, if you're there, you can speak up. I'm going to lower your hand, then. I'm guessing you did it by mistake.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Okay. Ms. Beverly, I was giving you some time there. Are you ready for us?
Okay. Let's see if you see it coming in.
You still working?
Um,
It's okay. I have something to put up if you need more time.
well, you can see
Okay.
if you see me coming in?
I see an iPad coming in.
All right.
Do you want to share your screen from the iPad? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Can
So
you see me from the phone?
I see you, but I see only you. I'll tell you what, while Miss Beverly works on that, hang on, let me mute her. Let me share something else with you here. I've talked to a few people, and I've said that I would personally share some things that I think have been of value to me over the years, things that I keep in mind as I actually live every day. And I want to just share, I wrote these down. These are things that I wish I'd understood sooner in life. I'm assuming you all can see that. And Ms. Beverly, just tell me when you're ready, and we can go off here. The first thing I wish I understood, again, and I've used this already, the Bible says, "But there is no vision that people perish." You got to have a long-term plan. If you aren't thinking about 10 years from now and 20 years from now, you're making a mistake, because believe it or not, you'll be 58 years old, which is I am right now, a lot sooner than you think. You know, it's amazing to me. You know, I always love to speak to Deacon Lawson, because he always says, "How are your babies?" And I smile, because I'm like, you know something? My boys were babies last week, it seems. But now Daniel is 30 years old. Stephen is 28. Matt will be 26 in a few months. And by the way, I'm 30 years older. So if you don't have a plan for the future, you're making a mistake. Number two, if I live from paycheck to paycheck, I'm only a slave to those I owe. We just discussed that. If you're saving nothing, then who are you working for? You're working for that car company, that landlord, that mortgage company. You know, again, the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, says a tenth of what you earn should be yours. Okay. Number three, you can't earn your way to wealth. You must invest. Understand up front that 401ks and Social Security were meant to supplement your retirement. I'm gonna say that again. This is very important. 401ks and Social Security were meant to supplement your retirement. They were never meant to be things to retire off of, which means you will never make enough money from those things to actually retire off of. I've made a bet for the last 20 years, and I'm making a bet with you all right now. If you can look at your plan, look at where you are right now, and look at where you want to be when you retire, and you draw a line, and you're not investing, if you can make it from where you are now, mathematically, to where you're going to be, I'll buy you dinner free of charge at your restaurant of choice, because you cannot do it. You have to invest. Number 4, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. Antoine Walker, I'm sure, is a nice guy. I think they said he made like $100 million while he played basketball. Lost every bit of it. He's doing fine now. Praise the Lord for that. But you want to just say, how do you lose $100 million? I'll tell you how. If you spend $101 million, it's real simple. If you spend everything you have there, then you're going to be nowhere at all. Rich people plan for 3 generations. Poor folks plan for Saturday night. If you're just thinking about the next party, the next event, the next thing, it doesn't matter how cute it is. Oh, I want to get my daughter this new dress. I want to paint this wall. It doesn't matter what it is. Those things can and should be done, but they should be done in light of time and how things are of value. Don't be so focused on making it rain that you forget to plan for a rainy day. A lot of people wear what they actually own. I know people, and when you see them, you see their wealth. It's on their body. It's in their car. And you want to just go, are you truly planning ahead? What happens? I don't say if things go bad, when things go bad. Somebody's going to get sick. That car is going to break down. That AC unit is going to fail at some point. That hot water heater is going to burst. It'll be 3 a.m. and it's going to burst. And the question is, are you planning for that right now? This is one of my favorites, number 7. Rich people buy assets. Poor people have expenses. Middle-class people buy liabilities that they think are assets. An asset is defined as something you put that puts money in your pocket. If money's not going into your pocket, it is not an asset. It's a liability. I love my home. It's a nice place because Miss Lisa wouldn't live anywhere else. but my home is a liability, and I can prove it. Does my home put money in my pocket or not? It does not. I pay every month on it. Well, I've paid my house off. You still pay taxes and insurance. I'm not saying don't buy a house. I think a house is a great thing to purchase. What I am saying is see it for what it is. Okay, it's a nice liability. You can save money with it over time. Okay, but it's the real value of a house is cutting your expenses. And Ms. Beva's going to talk about renting versus buying. So it's a good thing to have, but understand it is not something you can live off of. Number 8, those who fail to plan to fail. You got to know where you are and where you're going. That goes back to getting a credit report, understanding what's going on with you, and understanding your long-term vision. Get busy minding your own business. I have friends, and I won't call any names, but when it comes to their church, they're outstanding. When it comes to their job, they're super employees. But when it comes to what I would call Les Moore Incorporated or Beverly Bowens Incorporated or Mark Bernard Incorporated, just using some names here, what are you doing to make sure you are moving forward? If you aren't busy taking care of those things, that it's going to hurt you. The last one, I think, is one of the most important ones. Always be a learner. Anyone that's talked to me for a long period of time have heard me use a quote that says, in times of great change, learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned, people think they know it all, find themselves beautifully equipped for a world that no longer exists. I actually purchase books all the time, and I actually want to hear the opposite side. One negative about this whole political season we're in is that if you're a Democrat, you seem to only get Democrat news. If you're Republican, you only seem to get Republican news. We're not talking politics here, but the point is, in your finances, learn different sides. Listen to Dave Ramsey. listen to Robert Kiyosaki, listen to all those people, understand. And by the way, you don't have to prescribe to everything they say. You have to listen to it, find out what's best for you. I actually have many uncles and aunts that I love, and they all have advice for me, which I appreciate. But what I do is I actually listen to them and say, okay, Uncle so-and-so said this. These three things make sense. These three don't. So I take the good, I toss out the bad, and I keep doing that. And there are many things that I thought I knew so well years ago that I learned that those things were wrong. And I changed those things because I'm constantly trying to learn new things. If you aren't reading, if you aren't trying to learn more, talking to more people about what they're doing, how they're doing it, you're really not focused on your own personal education. And that's why I love to talk to folks and be in these kind of sessions, because believe it or not, even though I'm here presenting, I learn something new every time I join one of these sessions. That's why I love to be working with Sister Beverly. But as promised, those were the 10 things that I wish I knew back then that I already know right now. Praise the Lord.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing those. I'm going to try to move out on this one. Okay. Very good.
I'm going to mute one of your channels, Beverly, see if it works.
Okay.
Is that better? Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll go with the next slide.
Okay, let's go back here. Just the one or the next one?
That one, you're exactly right. Okay, so this particular slide, and I thank you, Deacon Moore, also for bringing all those good tips right at the right time. God always knows, but thank you for that. Very good information. So what is your net worth? He was talking a little bit about knowing what you got and things like that. So, and what you're able to do. So I wanted to make sure everybody understand what net worth is. And basically, he talked about your assets. And those are things that you own, your assets. So in this little example that we're going to talk about, it kind of lets you see, here are my assets. Those are the ones in the first part where it says a simple example. So we're going to calculate how to get your net worth, okay? So you take everything that you own. So in this case, they own, let's see, $25,000 in the bank, $80,000 in land and home equity, $15,000 in investments, $30,000 valuable properties such as jewelry and cars. So these are things that you own, okay? So you take what you own, you total that up. In our example here, that's $150,000. I don't know what I got going with these cameras today. So you got the 150, and then you take away what you owe. What are your liabilities? Who do you owe money to? So you calculate that amount. So you got a $40,000 mortgage loan balance. You got $5,000 in car loans, $2,000 in credit card debts. So you got about $47,000 that you owe someone else. Okay, so those will be your liabilities, and then you subtract out your liabilities from your assets, and you come up with your net worth. No matter what you own, or even have, it's a good principle to do this, okay? So that 103 is your total net worth in this example. Next slide. Okay, so why is it important to know that information? All right, so I got a double screen here. There are several situations where you need to know that. Sometimes when you're working with a bank and you're trying to maybe start a business, they want to know what you're worth. They want to know why they should lend to you. You know, they want to know your assets and things that you own already, and who else that you owe in case you default on a loan. They want to know what position they're going to be in. You know, how many other people is going to be after your money in case you default. The next one, developing a financial plan for your estate or retirement. It's always good to know where you stand financially, and developing a strategy to reduce your income taxes. And there are ways to reduce that, like you talked about initially. No matter how much you make, or even owe, how do you maximize that so that you take net benefit and pay less taxes? Identifying property during a separation or divorce proceeding. So basically, you're going to want to know what you have. If that unfortunately will happen, you want to know where you stand so that you know what needs to be divided. Next slide. All right. So what is a spending plan? We talked a little bit about a spending plan. So what exactly is the spending plan all about? A spending plan is not meant to be a strict budget. Instead, it's a guide that will help you take control of your finances. There are 5 basic steps to creating your monthly spending plan. First, you want to list your total household income. So this is real simple. It doesn't take a lot of time as much as a traditional budget. It's real convenient for your age group. You want to subtract the total cost of your obligations that you have every month. So now you got your income, subtract your obligations, subtract the amount that you allocated for your goals, whether that be an investment goal, the goal to buy a car, whatever goals that you set. You need to make sure if you're paying towards those goals every month that you include that in your spending plan. Then you need to assess what is remaining, okay? And you always want to hope that's in a positive number or an amount so that you make sure that you're not overspending. And then you always want to analyze and adjust as needed. Any spending plan is just a guide or a tool, and it will change as things change in your life. So you're not stuck to it for life, and it changes every single month in many cases. The next slide. Okay, why you should have the spending plan. It gives you a process of tracking your income and your expenses. It's a safety process to prevent overspending. It gives you control of your finances. It allows you to manage your ongoing financial activities. It helps you plan and set your priorities, and it makes you accountable for God's blessings. So all what you have has come from Him, and it really helps you to make sure that you're being wise with that blessing.
Amen.
Next slide. Okay, so you should always have an emergency fund. So this emergency fund is a stash of money that's set aside to cover big unexpected expenses or financial surprises that life throws your way. There's always something that changes in our lives, like job losses, medical expenses.
I'm sorry, I was trying to fix something. I go back here. There's something in that page there. I'm assuming you guys can see that. There it is.
Okay.
Okay, continue on.
Okay, you can delete that.
Okay.
You can cut that. Thank you.
I'll go
All
back
right.
into, hang on.
All right.
Can you all see the presentation mode now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so, and it's also for those unexpected events that will happen, home repairs, car troubles, unplanned travels that you may have to make. So this emergency fund, the stash of money that you have available to you is really a great benefit, because it will keep down some of the stress, because oftentimes something happens and people are not prepared, and there's a COVID or there's a job loss or there's just a crisis that happened in your life, but you want to have something so that it helps reduces the stress that you're going to be going through just due to the situation that you're facing. So you'll be able to have less stress if you have a financial plan to kind of address that. It keeps you from spending on a whim, so that you're not just spending money and not planned it, so that you have that money available to you. And it keeps you from making bad financial decisions. So if you have to have an emergency where you have to travel, well, now you got to put it on a credit card because you didn't have any money in the bank, but you really need to make that trip. So always have an emergency fund to help you in these situations. Next slide.
Okay, can I share a tip on something that Miss Lisa and I did for years, And I've told Miss Beverly, and I'll share with you all, that I don't think I'm a good budgeter. Miss Beverly has explained to me that actually I am. It's just that I do it in a different way. I actually do things so I cannot make a mistake. So I'll share with you kind of what the mowers do, and feel free to, give me some feedback on this. But we actually have multiple accounts. Okay, one account is set up for all of the hard expenses that we have: the house payment, the car notes, the utilities. All these things come out of this account, and every month money goes into that account to cover those bills. And that way you always know you can cover those things. The next thing is an emergency fund, and every month a small amount goes into that. And the emergency fund is set up, and it's only touched when it gets to be super large, and I can use it for my third one, which I'll tell you in a second, or if something happens. The third one is an investment account, and I put money in there. And you guys know on TV, you see that commercial, and I've forgotten which one it is, but it has the orange money and the green money. And you're not supposed to spend the orange money. Well, anything that goes into that investment account stays there, and it's only used for investments. And the fourth one is what I call folded money. In all honesty, most of the folded money goes to Miss Lisa, but that's neither here nor there. But the point there is that when you do those things, now you've covered things. So when money actually hits the folded money account, and by the way, how do you know when you stop spending? When there's no more money left. So the biggest conversation the mowers have is, hey, this account is empty. We can't spend any more money until next month. But that way we always know that the bills are paid. So I have a system set up already that says what are the things we have to do, we have to spend. That goes by itself, and so because every year we actually know how much things cost. So that goes into account there, and it's easy. The emergency fund goes there, then the investment fund, and then we take out the money that we actually are going to spend and enjoy. And that way, then I don't have to worry about how much I spend for going out to dinner. This is an example, because if there's no money in the account, guess what? It's beans at home. It's just that simple. Miss Beverly?
Awesome. All right, thank you for sharing that. Very good. You have such good practical examples that really bring light to what we're doing this morning. So thank you again. Next slide. Okay, so what is the real cost of an unexpected car repair? So as you can see, the 4 categories across the top, or the 3, talks about this emergency savings. So all of a sudden you need a car repair. So you can see, you can use your emergency savings, your credit card, or you can do that payday loan we talked about. What's the overall impact of doing that? So if you go down to the bottom, you'll see the total cost of that car repair. So if you use your emergency fund, it was just $350. That was all you needed. It cost you no more than what it cost. If you use a credit card, you would see that you're going to now have to pay interest on that. And if you don't pay it all off, it'll even grow larger than the $390. So again, you can see that using that credit card is going to be a cost to you. And then the last one, that payday loan, if you pay it off in that 14 days, it still will cost you. So instead of paying $350, now you're paying $402.50 for that car repair. So keep all of that in mind as you are having to use credit and different forms to actually get things done. So I lost video. Am I there? Deacon Moore?
Yes.
Okay, I lost video. I can't see anything. So. Next slide. Okay, so what is savings? Okay, savings is just a way to put money aside today for any future needs that you may have, such as that emergency fund or unexpected expenses. Money in savings accounts can earn you interest. Okay, so money in the bank in some cases can earn you interest. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we transition to some of the online web banking, not just online banking, where you can do a web only account. that will earn you a little bit more interest. And maintaining your savings will prevent you from borrowing money and paying high interest rates. Next slide. Okay, so some of the misconceptions about savings is that my income is too small for me to save. When you save, you're worried about the future. These are misconceptions or myths. Money is just for spending, not true. I can wait until I'm over 50 to start saving for retirement, definitely not true. Saving is hoarding. You're a stingy or penny pinching when you save, not true. A good salary means financial security, definitely not true. If I do a poor job at paying my bills and saving, I can always just file bankruptcy, not true. All right, those are just some myths and things to think about when it comes to, why it's important to save and understanding what the realities are and some things that are not true. Next slide. Okay, taking steps to create savings. So basically, it's pretty simple. You must make the decision to save, and you have to be committed to it. You may fall off track 1 or 2 months, but just get back on. Don't beat yourself up against the head. Just say, oh, I didn't put back my $50 I was going to save or my $20. Savings don't always have to be big. You save based on what you can save. So if it's $20 a month, that's savings. If it's $50 a month, again, that's saving. There are 2 ways to find money to save. First, you need to, you can spend less. That would be the first way to find some money, because people say, I can't save. Well, you may be able to decrease some of your expenses that you have going out. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So what can I do to decrease? What can I cut back on so that I can save more? Or you can increase your income. You can even work a second job. So there are ways to start building that savings that we've been talking about. You can barter services. And what that means, I'm going to come over and cook your dinner while you come over and cut my grass. We all have different skill sets. And so you can work with your friends and family members to say, hey, you're good at this, and I'm not so good or don't have time. Let's switch out. And that way we don't have to pay for someone else to do those services. I'll do that for you for free, and you can do this for me for free. So in today's time, that's happening more now than ever before, as people are having to get creative in how they meet their obligations. You can work overtime on the job. You can earn a bonus on your job, or you can put back money from your tax refund for those who get those large refunds. If paid bi-weekly, there are 2 months each year when you're going to get 3 paychecks instead of 2. So for that month, for that actually during that year. So you can take that extra paycheck that you didn't have to live on prior, and you can put that money twice a year into a separate account and say, hey, here's an emergency fund. Because those 2 months paychecks that those 2 extra paychecks you got that month are very valuable in that respect. Next slide.
Hey, can I share a quick story on how I began saving? Mm-hmm. Okay. And to kind of set the scene, the year was 1985. And I actually got advice from a very good family member. And what he told me, he said, and by the way, for those folks who are just starting off, this is good advice, and then I can tweak it for folks who've been out there for a while. But Josiah, this one's for you, buddy. He told me, he said, when you first leave college, you're going to get the biggest raise you've ever gotten. He says, you're going to go from making no money to actually making a salary. He says, enjoy yourself. Go out, spend that money and get all the things you need, buy your apartment, and he mentioned buy, don't borrow. But he said, in 6 months to a year, this was 85, things have changed a little bit now. He said, but in 6 months to a year, you're going to get a raise. And he said, whatever that raise is, save that. And by doing that, you won't miss the money. Because if I was making $1,000 a week, and now I'm making $1,050 a week, if I keep spending $1,000, I haven't missed anything at all. I can save the 50 free and easy. And he told me, he said, then the next raise you get, spend it, enjoy yourself. but the one after that, save it. And what that did was over a period of like 3 years, I was saving like 15% a year. Now, I know raises don't come as much now. So, by the way, Josiah, that one's for you, okay? Make sure you put a plan in place to start saving things. For those of you all who've been out there in the business for a while, the real trick that my uncle taught me there was if you save in small increments and increase in small increments, they'll become big increments over time. So what you all can do is just start, just say to yourself, I'm gonna start saving 30 bucks a month now. And then in 6 months, I'll save 60 bucks a month or whatever. And if you ease into it, it won't be as painful for you because your body, your financial picture will actually adjust to it. It's the same with exercising. You guys know when you exercise, you don't go up starting with 10 miles. You start with 2 miles. And then you go to 3 and 4, and you keep adding those things up. That's the real lesson that I learned from my uncle, and I've used it my entire life. And I've never felt like I lacked anything because I eased into my savings plan.
Awesome. All right. So I mentioned that we'll talk about banking options and the differences between each. So basically, we all are aware of the traditional banks and credit unions as methods to actually to do our banking. And so now things have moved on with technology, and we can do what's called a web-only banking. And there's some differences in between those two options. So with the traditional bank, you have some online services. You still can pay your bills online, so you can still do some things online. So you can do things in person, building that banking relationship that's important in many cases, especially to us baby boomers. We really love knowing our bankers because they were able to do some things when we needed them done. So not so much today. Ability to deposit and withdraw cash. So if you are doing a job with cash and you are a beautician and you're taking a lot of money in cash, so if you have a web-only bank, that's going to make it hard for you to deposit your money. It also allows you to be able to have access to ATM machines, being able to withdraw money as needed. Many have low to no interest bearing accounts. So this is the key thing. So when you think about your savings and your investment money, you want your money to grow for you, especially if you put $1,000 in an account now. So my $1,000 is only now $1,000.59. Well, then you're a little disappointed because you really want your money to grow for you. So oftentimes in traditional banks and credit unions, your growth rate on savings and CDs are not that great anymore. And also, if you have to get a loan from a bank or credit union, you're going to have higher interest rates on those loans and credit cards that you would get from those institutions, but they are still good places to do business. But one of the new things I don't know how long web-only banking has been available. I don't have one, but I'm going to look into that because I do like some of the features it has. It's convenient too. You can do anytime banking, just like with your bank account. With many of the credit unions and banks, you can log in. But you can get better interest rates on your loans and credit cards. There are some I've looked at and I've done a little bit of research because I'm going like, well, what if I don't know these people? I'm letting manage my money while I'm asleep, but I'm kind of waiting to make sure I do my research to find out which one is reputable and that should be one that I should be, banking with. So better earnings on your savings and your money market accounts. So when that becomes important is that your earnings, again, I've seen where they're giving up to 4%, to you of your money, where the banks may only be getting you less than 1% on your money that you have with them. And the reason they can do that is because they don't have the brick and mortar, they don't have a building, they don't have staff members sitting in the bank all day that they have to pay, utilities and things like that. So they can offer you a better interest rate on your earnings as well as on the things that you want to borrow money for. So when you even, be able to borrow that money, get that credit card or a loan from them, your interest rate that you pay back to them is going to be a lot lower than going to a traditional bank. And the key thing too, that could be a very discouraging part of it, if you want to get cash money. You know, they may have some withdrawal features. I don't know if they use ATMs or not. But if you just want to deposit that beautician cash money, then you will have a little bit harder time not able to do that, as far as I know. Next slide. All right, so we talked a little bit about goals. So and I'm going to link this to your financial goals. Just make sure that when you're setting those goals, they're very specific, they're measurable, achievable, that they are relevant to what you need to get done, and they have a time bound. I mean, to say, I want to save $500 in the next 6 months. So that's my specific goal. So that's measurable, 6 months period. And then I need to say, how much per month do I need to divide up to make that possible? And again, that's making a SMART goal. So any goals that you set, in financial or personal, you need to make sure that you follow maybe, this little easy format to remember, being that it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Next slide. Okay, so typical financial goals includes creating that emergency fund, saving money for down payments for a home, planning to purchase your next car. So these are some potential goals: planning for a vacation, for your education for you or your children, plan to pay your home off early, start a business, maintain your income tax strategies and liabilities, and of course, planning for goals of investments. Next slide. Okay, so here is a little tool that is available to you. I think, Deacon Moore, did you put that one on the website?
I have not, but I can.
Okay, so this would just kind of give you an example of how to create your savings or emergency plan. And so as I kind of talked about down below, it gives you a little grid so that you can, I'm gonna blow it up some, so that you can see, okay, I need to do this, and it shows you how to make that plan for that emergency funds. And I've used an example about that $500 over the 6 months period. Okay, next slide. So if you want that, it'll be up on our website, and that will be something that you can just print off and be able to use. So let's move on and talk about debt. What is a debt? That's money that you owe, okay? So anytime you have a debt, that's some obligation or debt that you owe to someone else. Again, we talked a little bit about having less of that, or being less of a slave to our debts. So debt is a liability, and it's an obligation that you're going to have to pay with future income in many cases. So you want to make sure your debts are maintained so that you're not spending all your future income on past expenses and past things that you've done, because it kind of doesn't give you a good mix when you want to do future planning and future things, because you're still paying on that credit card debt from 10 years ago, that for those tennis shoes and those dinners out that we talked about earlier. So how is debt different from credit? So for our purposes, credit is the ability to borrow money, and debt is the result of using your credit, okay? So that debt is the result of using credit. So that means you have gone in debt and you use your credit. Now that's how that all comes about. Next slide. Okay, there's some good debts and there's some bad debts, and all of these that are listed here, they can be good in some situations, and in some situations they are definitely bad debts. So loans from friends or family members, that could be good and bad. Auto loans, student loans definitely can be very bad if not research and due diligence is not done. Payday loan, I would say 100% of the time, maybe 95% of the time. Yeah, there are times when people do get in a crunch, that life happens like that, and someone may use it one time and then that's it, and they don't go back. So that took care of me, they had right then. So I'm not going to say it's never beneficial, but you don't want that to be your ongoing practice of how you do business. Mortgage loans for a home, yeah, that can be a good and bad debt. Auto title loans, an auto title loan is when someone gives you some money. I was working at the Attorney General's office, and they were really hounding a lot of the seniors who did an auto title loan. They gave away the title to their vehicle for $500 so they could get their medications and pay some bills. Well, that's a good thing to do at that time. But then all of a sudden they called in, which meaning they wanted all those debts to be paid off. So now you have to come up with that money. And many seniors at that time, they didn't have that money. They didn't have that $500. So what it means, they had sold away their car for $500 on that title loan. So be aware of that and try not to make that something that you do. And, you know, I would always say that one's a bad one personally. You know, it's just because things do belly up at the wrong time and there you are all in a debt. You can't get your car back. Pawn shops loans, that's just a loan. You're taking your goods in and you're getting money for the moment. So try to stay away from that one. Medical bills, that's a bad debt. And what we're finding now is a lot of the medical facilities are able to try to work with people on some of their medical bills. So that's good. And now they don't show up on your credit report as collections like they once did. Next slide. All right, so the debt action plan. So people often wonder, how can I pay off my debts? What's the best method? Well, it's all going to depend on what you're able and willing to do and what kind of satisfaction you want to get. So you got $5,000 worth of debt. So you say, okay, how can I get this paid off quickly? Okay, so there's two real options for you. You can pay that highest interest rate first. So if you have a credit card, say it's got a 25% interest rate, you got one that's got 15%. So then you can start paying that highest interest rate first. So you get rid of the one with the biggest interest rate, and then that will allow you to then focus on the next one. So when you get rid of the one with the biggest interest rate, you're saving money because that one's gone and they had a bigger interest rate, which was costing you more money every month. So that's one method that you can do. You could pay that highest one off. And with that one, you know, you could save initially more that way. But if we look at our second option where you pay the smallest debt first, and sometimes that's beneficial to some people because they say, oh, I got one paid off, great. And the interest rate still could have been lower, but you feel a sense of satisfaction that you've done something. I've got rid of one. It might not be the one with the highest interest rate, it would be the one with the lowest balance. So that one had a $200 balance, I paid that one off. My next one, $500 balance, I paid that one off. So that you're paying them off based on the size of the balances. And sometimes people feel better doing it that way because they feel more of a sense of, I've made great attempts, I'm doing something towards the debts, even though they still may be paying higher interest on that one that has the biggest balance, could be the one with the highest interest rate. So there's no wrong or right, but just make sure that if you're gonna do something, be committed to it, and that you really, in some cases, you may even be able to negotiate some balances on some of the debts that you owe. So it's just taking time, because we can't go into all the processes, but, you know, just to tell you how to do that. But there are some methods that can be done. But if you need more information, just let us know and we'll be glad to discuss those with you. But I just want to kind of give you some overviews on that. Next slide. So how to calculate your debt to income ratios. People often go to the bank and they say, oh, you're not approved, your debt to income ratios were too high. And oftentimes my clients will walk away. Yeah, this was in my most recent job, but when I was at the bank in mortgages, you know, I could always tell them, okay, here's your ratios, here's how it's calculated, because you need to know, again, that education and that literacy and understanding why they turned you down for that loan so that you can go back and be in better shape the next time. So let's look at the example here. So, so basically what you want to do, you want to just take your amount of debt, divide that by your income. Let's see. So I'm going to try to blow that up. Can you all see that pretty good? So Sam's monthly debt payments total $1,540, and his monthly income totals to $4,000. Okay, so we know what Sam's got coming in. We know what his expenses are. Those debt payments are his expenses. So you divide that $1,540 by $4,000 and then multiply that by 100. So you can see in the example, his ratios or his debt to income ratios are 38.5%. So that just shows you so that when you're preparing to go to the bank to get a mortgage or whatever business you need to take care of, and if they're going to be looking at your ratios, already know what that is before you go in. And that would save yourself a lot of time because you can say, oh, if they're looking for a ratio that's 25% and I'm at 38, I need to reduce some debts or get more income. Next slide. And also there's a handout that he will put on the website to help you with that calculation. And it's just a small tool that will help you calculate your debt to income ratio. Next slide. So what is credit? Okay, we normally done about 11:30, so we got about 10 more minutes for those who can stay around. Credit is the ability to borrow money and repay it later. Okay, we all know that now. And you can have credit available to use without having debt. So that's good to understand. Okay, even though I have credit, I don't have to use it. You can still have that credit available, but you don't have to have debt. Next slide. Okay, you can create, people often talk about the credit report, and somebody put something on my credit report or Linda put something on. So basically what goes on that credit report is an activity of what you've done, who you've done business with, who you opened up accounts with. There will be inquiries showing that these are places you tried to get credit with. So always understanding that this credit history comes from the activity that you've done personally. And always, again, remember to check those credit reports to make sure they're accurate. It compiles information to what's called this credit report, and it's used to create or calculate your credit score. So the activity there would be, next slide. Show what makes up that credit report. Okay. Oh, can I see that one? Okay, so basically, so this just shows that there are better chances for credit cards and loan approval. So this is why, I can't see that one. Oh, it's just important, so good credit, got it now. Okay, so now we're talking about why this good credit is so important, because it helps with the interest rate that you're gonna get on your loans. You get better chance for credit cards and loan approval if you have good credit. More negotiating power. So if you need to negotiate something and you're in good credit, you're able to do so better with that good credit. You have easy approval for rental houses and apartments. When you go to rent an apartment, FYI, they will check your credit report. Also for jobs and things like that. So you want to make sure that your credit is in good shape, even to get a clearance with the federal government. They're going to be checking your credit. So make sure you maintain that good credit, okay? You're gonna get better car insurance rate, and you get a cell phone on contract with no deposits, and many times if your credit is good. If you're having to pay a deposit on the cell phone plan, that would mean that maybe your credit might not be where it should have been. And if you have good credit, then many times you can get it with no deposit. You want to avoid security deposits on utility bills. So if you have good credit and you have to now go from mama's house to daddy's house to get your own place, utility companies will pull your credit and decide whether they want to deposit from you, because of they're just seeing how you pay your bills, and that's the buck of the credit report, is want to know how you pay your bills. If you paid your bills good and on time, they're more likely not to charge you a deposit for those utilities. Okay, and also you have some bragging rights, especially if you once had bad credit and you were able to get your credit in good standing, then you feel good about that you've done something to really improve your credit. So you have an opportunity to brag about that. Next slide.
I'm going to say this kind of jokingly, but I'm dead serious on this. Since I'm in the real estate business, I deal with people's credit reports all the time. And I always kind of smile when people come to me with those "the dog ate my homework" excuses. They actually want to rent something, or they want something done, and they'll say, "Well, let me explain what happened." And for some reason, a lot of folks believe that a good story just makes it okay. I'm here to tell you that that we're all grown folks, and a good story worked in junior high. I'll get your homework. The rain, the rain took it from my hand. In real life, that doesn't work. People will listen to you and go, yes, they'll nod their heads. But if you have bad credit, you will get the worst. Okay. Let me quickly tell you that when someone comes to me with bad credit, I actually may rent to that person, but guess what? I'm gonna get first and last month's rent. They pay an extra month's rent because I'm not going to expose myself to the risk this person has proven by their credit report that they don't pay back on time. And understand that if I can figure that out, banks, car companies, they do the exact same thing. So please understand your credit is very important. You will pay sometimes double, you will pay extra deposits because you have bad credit. And over time, in a matter of less than a year, you can improve your credit significantly. So don't think that having a good excuse, let me explain what happened, that doesn't work. Please hear me on that.
Very good point. Very good. All right, so we know the credit report. For those who have looked at our credit report, it's part of what's called our FICO score, and that FICO is a Fair Isaac score. So that just gives you, on this little chart, kind of what makes up that score, okay? So it shows you your payment history in the green, payment history. So if you've had credit for a very long time, you're gonna get a big percentage points from that, which means that you've been paying your credit on time for so many years. So you're going to get a big percentage points. If you're older and as you're starting out, you're going to get less of those points in that category because you don't have a big payment history. Going down to the amount owed, that just says how much do you owe. So in that case, are you using up 100% of what that credit card balance is every month? Are you maxing out the account? The credit card's for $1,000, you're using $1,000 every month. Well, then that amount owed, you're gonna get fewer points because you're owing so much. Your credit utilization, you're using the buck of that money every month, and you don't want to be there. You want to try to keep your utilization down under 30%. So if you have a credit card balance that's $1,000, when I was in banking, we wanted to kind of see that, under 30%, so that you're not look like you're maxed out. Because if you got 5 accounts and they all look like they're maxed out, then that doesn't look good. Maxed out meaning my credit limit's 1,000, I owe 1,000. So you're going to get very few points in your credit because every month that's going to be recalculated as to your activity for the previous month. So you want to make sure that you keep them lower so that you can get more points, percentage points in the yellow. Your length of credit. Okay, so how long have you had those accounts open? So you're going to get points for that. So 15% there. And the type of accounts, do you have a mix in your credit file? Do you have a mortgage, a credit card, a car loan, student loan? So what is your mix of credit? So that they can see that you have a variety. So you actually get points for that, a percentage points in your credit for that. And new credit, believe it or not, new credit, you do get some credit points for that, a percentage amount of 10%. So these 5 different divisions or categories makes up your credit score. And for the people who are older tend to have better credit scores because they've had that payment history for a longer time. So the new people that are starting out, you still get points there, but if you're doing all the other things good as well, you too can still have a very good credit report, making sure that you're not maxing out like in the yellow, making sure that you're keeping that below 30%. And in most cases, if you're doing it wisely, then you will have no balance on that account at the end of each month. You owe 1,000, that's what your balance is, it's what you have available to use. And at the end of the month, you still have that 1,000. That means that you paid it off in full within that 30-day period so that you can maximize the points there. Next slide. Okay, So we kind of talked about many of these, so we'll skip this one. It's talking about purchasing a house, doing an apartment. So these are ways to put it.
I want to remind you also, because I know we're getting short on time, that Brother Mark want to talk about taxes also. So make sure we leave time for that.
Okay, all right. So financial benefits of owning a home versus renting. So when you own this home, you more or less investing in yourself as rent continues to increase. So this will kind of protect you if you got up $700 a month now, and 6 years from now, you're still paying $700, when rent may have gone up to $1,100. Home ownership is a better long-term investment. Interest rates are historically low. You can keep your payments lower. You can gain equity as property values continue to rise. So that's another benefit. It's more predictable with that monthly payment. It brings in extra income by renting a room that you can do. And it's a tax deduction in many cases, depending on your overall tax situation. Next slide. Okay, so this one just says start saving for retirement now. So I think Deacon Moore have done a great job already kind of explaining this and the long and short of it, and there's a lot of information there that you can read later. So that compounding interest, so even if you're starting as young as 20, 25, start saving now. And even if you're saving a small amount, then that's compounded over time, then you're gonna net out so much better than waiting until you're 50 and start saving. Because you have all those years when that compounded interest have calculated into your account. So always, always start saving for retirement, even as early as now. You know, you can start, even though you might not have access to a retirement plan, you can even put $20 a month in and say, hey, this is to supplement, because as you said earlier, you have to invest in your own retirement as well. So even if you start with $20 from now until you retire, that money will compound greatly. And as we know, the demands on our money as we get older, those also increase. So now if you're single with one child versus two, you know, things would change. And as you get older and have to pay more expenses, which is going to reduce what you have available to you to save. So it's better to go ahead and try to get started now, because procrastination, it doesn't pay. The longer you wait, the more you have to save, you know. So if you save it now, oh, I can't see the bottom of the slide. I'm having trouble with this technology today.
Procrastinating does not pay. The longer you wait, the more you'll have to save, and the harder it will be to achieve financial, I can't read it either, hang on. Financial security in your latter years. You owe it to your future self to find a way to put aside a little cash, even if you're young and broke. I like that.
Right. So that's really important to always invest in yourself, have something on the side as a retirement account, even though you will have one maybe on a job or something like that, but always invest in yourself. Next slide.
You know, real quick, and I know we as Christians know that there's no such thing as luck, but and forgive me, but I'm always someone who remembers little nice sayings that people tell me. And someone told me a long time ago that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And that's so important in what Ms. Beverly is saying here, because see, when you're saving money, you're actually preparing for things in the future. This is what happens. This is what has happened to me over the years. People come to me and say, man, I have this great opportunity. I'd love for you to join me in it. And if I've done the right thing and saved some money and been working all along for that time frame, I can say, yeah, I'll join you in that. We miss out on so many things because we expect when the good opportunity comes up that the money would just present itself or just be there. No, you actually plan every day to say at some point in the future, something good's going to happen. I'm going to have some opportunities. So I want to prepare for it now. This is why you save. This is why you invest, because you know, I'd love to tell you that saving for your future goes in a straight line. It doesn't. You'll save along at a lower rate. An opportunity will come up and present itself. Then you'll save some large amount of money. Then you go back, you know, almost straight again. But you have to be saving to prepare for when those days come. Because if I come to you and say, hey, here's this opportunity, and this isn't me, I wouldn't do this. But if someone said, hey, $5,000 to get you into this thing, if you don't have the $5,000, you can't do it. So you want to plan now to be prepared when opportunity presents itself. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, so this little chart here shows you at certain ages. So if you're starting at age 20, and you're saving $3,168 per year, you can be a millionaire at age 65. Okay, now I didn't put this together. This is one of the ones I got off the website. So age 25, so it just shows you down to age 50 how much you're going to have to put in every year. So if you start at age 20, you're only having to put $3,168 per year. And because of the compound and the interest and the time, if you wait until age 50 in order to be a millionaire at age 65, you're going to have to put in a lot more money, $37,860 a year. Those numbers are quite differently. So you can see starting early and at age 20, it really pays off. So $3,000 a year, and even if you do $2,000, even if your goal is not to be a millionaire, but the whole point is to show you how your money grows over time. So if you start early, it will pay off. Next slide. Okay, so here's some general information about planning for retirement. Most employers no longer offer a traditional pension plan. That's something that many of the baby boomers were able to take part of, but the millennials were not as often. I don't know of any employer, maybe other than the federal government, that may give you a true retirement pension. State government, even they're doing 401ks. Most employers offer that 401k or 403b retirement plan or other defined benefit plans. So the whole purpose, they're not just funding that on your behalf. There was a time when you could work for an employer for 20 years, 30 years, or whatever the defined time was, and they would give you a pension and you walk away happy. Well, now you're having to invest also in that plan in order to make it valuable to you later in life. You should always take advantage of whatever retirement plan your company offers as soon as you're eligible. One company, when I was younger, they said, well, you don't have to do it now. You're not 30. But they say that, but it makes sense to do it even though I'm not 30. So even though I'm eligible and I'm 25 and they're going to be offering me that retirement plan, and they say you're eligible, you have to wait 1 year or 6 months, I'm not eligible, it's to my advantage to go ahead and take advantage of that, even though I don't meet that age requirement of being mandated. And that's what it was then at that company. I had to be 30. But I was 25. So many plans require that you invest in the plan as well, payroll deduction, and offer you a defined percentage amount as a company match. So that's another good reason to take part in that, because they're going to be matching whatever dollars that are, coming out. So you put in 6% and they will have a defined amount, that percentage amount that they will give you. So you put in 6, they put in 6%, and that's of your income. That's of your gross income that they would be putting that in to a retirement plan, such as a 401k, 403b, and that would be invested, and that would be linked to the mainly the stock market. So these things are very much linked to the stock market. So as the stock market does good, so does your money. But when there's a drop in the market, such as last week, then you lose money. But over time, it's always been good to invest in stock market. It's always tend to come back. So a lot of times people want to take the money out in the down market, but sometimes it pays to just keep your money there and wait it out and kind of see what happens. But I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not going to tell you what to do with that part. Go ahead, Deacon Moore.
It's about 3 minutes till 12, and I know that people have to leave at noon here. We probably want to come back and finish the presentation. As you see, Miss Beverly has tons of stuff. I wanted to see if Brother Mark had a question. Sorry?
We only have 2 more slides. This may be the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting towards the end. All right, so we'll go ahead and finish this one up. We'll go back to the other one on the retirement, please. All right, so basically it's just saying take advantage of that. So you should refrain from withdrawing these plans So if you lose a job, and I really want to make this clear. So say if you have to lose a job during COVID or whenever, or you leaving a company, you're going to pay if you take that money out of that account. So be real careful that you don't do that, because you're going to pay taxes, penalties, and different interest for doing that. So you don't want to do that if you don't have to. Try to roll that money over into another plan so that you can avoid those excessive fees and those penalties, and leave that money in another plan versus taking it out and cashing it out. So many times people are doing that now, but that money was set there for your long-term retirement. So next slide. And this just talks a little bit about benefits of life insurance. And I know so many young people don't understand that life insurance is a tool too, a financial tool that they can use. Sometimes you realize your family may depend on that if something happens to you and you're married and you have children. And it's more affordable when you're young and healthy. So you can get plans now that will maybe cost you $10 or $15 a month for $100,000 of insurance coverage while you're young. But as you get older, those numbers are harder. It's harder to get insurance when you're older. And also if you have health conditions. So a good word of advice, look into that. If you don't have life insurance, if you have children at home, a wife, or if you have debt that would need to be paid off, I mean, you can use it for whatever it's needed for in the event someone passes away. So there are two general types of life insurance. There's the term life. These policies last for a specific number of years and are suitable for most people. But if you die within that time frame, it expires with no payout. So if you die outside of that, say it ends at 70, then if you die at 71, you get nothing, because they have a set period. It's a term. It lasts only for so long. So when you buy a term, and that's the purpose, it says it's going to be for a certain amount of time or a term. So 80-year term or 70-year term. So after that, you would have paid up all that money and have no insurance. So keep that in mind. And permanent life insurance, these policies last your entire life, such as a whole life policy. These rates tend to be a little bit higher, but they last for the term of your life. So if you live to be 90, you still have insurance, versus the term policy that's going to term out. And so consider this as yet another financial tool to use in your financial situation. Next slide. I think that's maybe the last one. Okay, so these are the signs that says that you're on track to financial empowerment. You're consistently saving, you're living on a budget, you're committed to stewardship and charitable giving, you're balancing your checkbook, you're planning meals and shopping ahead, you're giving yourself permissions for an occasional treat, you're setting financial goals, you're having your tax withholdings right, you're avoiding large refunds, because when that happens, that's your money in the first place. Uncle Sam sends it back to you, but could you have invested in such a way that you would have netted out more money than having them hold on to it for you and send it back? Eliminating or reducing your debts and expensive habits, and involving the family in money discussions. So that's the last slide. So if there are any questions, I know we went through these pretty fast, and we didn't go in depth with any one topic because I didn't know if we have another time together. But if anyone has specific questions, we'd be glad to, talk to you about those. If you want to put something in chat that we can address for you, but just wanted to give you a good overview of some things to think about, and some things that can help lead you to financial empowerment. Any questions?
Brother Mark, would you go ahead right quick?
So first, before I ask my question, I just want to say thank you both for having this for all of us. It's been a pleasant time for you guys bestowing this knowledge upon us. It's been a gift. I think it's great that you guys touched upon the difference between online savings accounts versus savings accounts associated with brick and mortar stores, the different ways of paying off debt, higher interest versus the lower amount. Showing us what really comprises of a credit score, the 5 components of it. The credit score can sort of be this enigma. It's just a magical number that somehow they come up with. I appreciate that. The practical ways to increase your income, like working overtime. And also showing us that I never knew a house was a liability in some respects. And telling us the true definition of co-signing defining term and permanent life insurance. I've heard the terms being used, but never really looked deep into what they were and the differences. So I thought it was great, but I mean, and also thought it was really important. You guys maybe indirectly stress independence and this non-permanent victim mentality. You know, surprises do come with us in our lives. It could be medical expenses, unexpected deaths, you know, car broke down. But I think you guys really stress, yes, you guys can bring yourself into another financial stratosphere, I guess, or, you know, better financial funding despite of what has happened to you in the past. And so all of those I thought were nuggets. If anybody else wants to comment, feel free to do so. But for me, I had a question for the group. Let's say somebody wants to get on board with this and they want to start saving. Do you guys recommend they pay off their debts while they're saving, or do you think they should pay off their debts then start saving, or is it person specific?
Is Beverly, you want to hit that one, or do you want me to hit that one?
Well, go ahead and hit that one and I'll come in.
Okay, I'm probably not as rigid as most people are. A lot of people focus on specific actions. I more or less focus on the direction of things. So as you know, as someone who is serious, there are several ways of doing things. You know, do I pay off my debt first? You know, I personally like to pay off my debt if I can do it quickly. I want to do that. But if I choose to do them both at the same time, that works also. The biggest issue with most people is that they never make the decision to go off and do it. So I'm of the opinion when you're going the right way, there is no wrong answer. Okay, so if you say I'm going to pay off my debt first, I'm going to say cool. I'm going to invest first, because remember, your plan is long term. Paying off debt, you may be done in a year, and then you have the next 20 years to invest. If you do them both at the same time, it may take you 2 years to pay off debt, and you save some money. So I don't get caught up into all the, you know, Rule 5 says this. I'm like, what is the direction of your life? Ms. Beverly?
All right, and I guess when I worked with this age group, and many of them were in heavy debts and could not really save. So the thing I always told them, save something. Even though you're paying off the debt, do that, but stay committed and make sure that you're following through on that budget every month or that spending plan. And that will be a true indicator of your mindset. Am I committed to do whatever these goals I'm setting? You know, because that's oftentimes is the biggest problem. People are not committed even to paying off the bills. They will stray away from it. They will stray away from saving money. And then something happens. So to me, my biggest lead would be to just be committed, have that spending plan. What do you have left over? Can I pay a little extra on the bills? And just work your plan. Just make sure that you're committed to it and make sure that you're diligent about working that plan.
Okay. And so the next comment is more of a discussional point. And before it's made, I want to stress that this is just my opinion. And so if I'm wrong in my assessment, my understanding, or, you know, I recognize that could very well be. I'm in no way claiming to be infallible in this belief that I have. But for me, I don't necessarily separate good debt versus bad debt. To me, it's just debt. To me, it's bad debt versus even worse debt. And specifically when it comes to credit cards, I'm not a fan of them because I believe that across the board, if you take 100 people and, you know, you give half of them cash and half of them a credit card, the people who have a credit card by default will spend about 20% more. So for me, having a credit card predisposes you to spending more. There's a certain pain that I feel when I go to the grocery store or I go to the mall and I put the cash down on the counter and I get less cash coming back. There's a certain pain that I feel that sort of prevents me from overspending. And so with that being said, and also when I use my credit card, I'm temporarily going into debt until the end of the month. And so I wanted to know, what are your guys' comments on that? Or am I wrong for thinking that? And for me, I just try to use cash at all times with the debit card.
I think that's a very good plan because it allows you to not pay extra money that you're paying in those interests every month that you would otherwise be paying. So you're able to save that money and you're not spending money that you don't have. I mean, it allows you to cash out every month. Okay, this month's over, and I didn't overspend, because if you're overspending and you're not watching what you're doing, naturally you're going to be in a bigger financial liability to your credit card companies, and being able to make sure that you're writing those amounts down when you use the debit card, being sure that you're recording those, because not recording those have caused people a lot of problems as well, because they use the debit card, but they didn't write down the transaction. So now they have, amounts that don't balance out, and they sometimes are in the negative. But that's a good practice when you're able to pay them off for sure, because you can rest better at night knowing that you don't owe anybody. So I think that's a good plan. And one of the things that we didn't talk about, nationally, they did a report, and it was reported that most people didn't even have $400 saved up in case of an emergency. So with that, when you think about the people, and it's just an average number, that the average person don't even have $400 in savings. So then it makes you wonder about what's going on also with their, their other obligations and their debts.